Hi, everybody. Welcome. We are going to get started at exactly 3:30, so one more minute. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Elisa Gilbert, and I'm here as a facilitator for the Illinois Association for College Admission Counseling, and this is the session with Bennington. Welcome to the Virtual College Exploration for All Illinois Students, sponsored by IACAC, Illinois Association for College Admission Counseling, and also by StriveScan. Thank you so much for joining us today. A few housekeeping announcements before we get started. You can use the Q&A button on your screen to type your questions to our presenter at any time. You'll notice that your camera and microphone are off, so the panelists cannot hear you or see you. This is also just one of many sessions that are happening right now, so please be sure to check out the full schedule at iacac.org. This session is being recorded and will be available within about a week at the same website, iacac.org. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to our presenter, Wesley.
Hi, folks. My name's Wesley Hoff. I'm an admissions counselor at Bennington College. I'm also an alum of the college. I graduated in 2018, so not too far out of my own college search. I'm going to talk to you about the basics of Bennington a little bit. We were founded in 1929, a small private progressive liberal arts school in southwestern Vermont. So we're right in the corner of the state, about a 5-minute drive to the New York state line and a 5-minute drive to the Massachusetts state line. We were really founded under the belief that the most valuable education a student can get is one where they're actively involved in shaping that education. We've always believed that it's something that students have to very proactively work on in order to take for themselves. It's not something that they just receive. We've also believed that faculty are most helpful when they're active in their fields. So that means all teachers at Bennington are working on another project while they're teaching. So that can mean they're writing a book, they are working on a new play, they're writing an article for a scholarly journal. So there's a nice sense on campus that faculty aren't just mentors, but that they're also potential peers, potential collaborators, and career resources as you continue your time at Bennington. So a couple things that make us pretty different than other liberal arts schools, even the progressive kinds, are our size, and the way we do the liberal arts, which we call the plan process. And I'll talk about that a little bit. And finally, fieldwork term. Fieldwork term is an annual internship period that happens every winter for 6 weeks. So you're going to be doing work every winter and graduate with 4 internships on your resume. Bennington is a really small school. We're about 700 students. With a faculty student ratio of about 1 to 9, 1 to 10. So the average class is around 12 students, 16 students is big at Bennington. So your typical liberal arts school experience involves taking a bunch of required courses in different areas like English, history, science, math, and then after your first year, declaring an area of study that you're interested in pursuing. We call that declaring a major. Some schools you can do 2 majors, you can double major. Some schools you can do a minor. So you can study 2 or even 3 things at some of these liberal arts schools. At Bennington, instead of declaring a major, students write an essay called the plan essay, where they talk about what they want to study. So they list those areas of study that otherwise you would have called your major. So literature, film, media studies, for example. You talk about how these things are connected, why you want to study them. Are there specific projects or topics that intersect with these areas of study that are of serious interest to you? How are you going to make this plan happen? What classes are you going to take? What faculty are you going to work with? And finally, what are you going to do with this education after you graduate? So it's a major essay, but it's short, it's 3 to 5 pages, but it's a really important chance for you to sort of lay everything out on the table and really start to nail down why you're at college and what you want to get out of it. You write this essay, turn it into your faculty advisor, and this is early September of your sophomore year. About a month later, in October, every student who wrote a plan essay will hear back from the dean's office with a list of faculty that are going to meet with them that represent their different subjects. So in about mid-November, every student who's written a plan has about a 45-minute or hour-long meeting called a plan meeting with this team of faculty that have been handpicked for them. Now, as a sophomore, you might not have had classes with all 3 of these faculty. So there's an exciting energy in the air because you're getting good advice from experts in these fields that you want to get into. And you're also meeting people potentially that you're going to be working with for the next 2 years. So in this meeting, it's less of an evaluation as much as it is a chance to get advice. So you're being recommended classes, you're being recommended general areas of study and specific faculty to work with. So for example, if a student comes to Bennington and let's say they're an actor, they're a writer, they're a director, and they write their plan essay in all these different areas of study, literature, directing, theater arts. If they don't write anything about the humanities like philosophy, psychology, or more social sciences, if they really want to be a character design student, if they wrote their essay in character design, what it means to play a good character, write a good character, direct a good character, they really need to approach that subject from an academic perspective too, not just a creative one. So that's just one example of maybe scenarios where students are being encouraged to take things that at first may seem outside of their working world, but actually may be really important and may be housing some interest, some really deep interest that you haven't uncovered yet for yourself. So you have this meeting sophomore year, and you either pass your meeting or are deferred. Passing your meeting simply means that you are all set, you're going to take the advice that you got and start to think about writing your next draft of your essay and paring it down even more, focusing it more. If you're deferred, we very intentionally don't call that a failure. The idea of being deferred is that you need to rewrite your plan right away next semester, but have enough time to think about, what you wrote your first essay in, what's changed since. They just want you to give yourself more time to think about your plan essay before diving into it once more. So either way, whether you pass or are deferred, you have to write another essay at some point. We like to call the plan essay a living document because it's never quite finished. Even after you graduate, it's always adapting with you as your interests change. Bennington believes that college, is an inherently ambiguous time, and that really to grow as a student means to be in charge of your education and make very specific choices. So Bennington is really great for students who are passionate, don't need to wait for permission to do their work. They're excited about doing projects and collaborating and making a change in the world. So in this sense, again, there are no required classes at Bennington. The student is in complete control over the classes that they choose and the areas of study that they decide to focus in. So that's your plan meeting that happens early sophomore year. So now as a junior, you've had even more time to reflect. You've probably tried some new areas of study. Maybe you've let go of some old ones, and you're really starting to think about how all of these subjects can lend themselves to a cohesive project that concludes your 4-year experience. So you write one more plan essay as a junior. This time, it's about your advanced work. Your advanced work is a senior project that you complete your senior year in addition to taking classes. Regardless of your area of study, you could write a thesis, do research, or put on a performance or a lecture or presentation. So, for example, literature students will write novels, collections of poetry, collections of short fiction. Science and math students will do their own research, maybe make their own programs, present on that, maybe write a long form thesis and submit that to be published in a scholarly journal. Visual arts students can put on solo exhibitions, get some friends together and make a group exhibition that's around a certain theme. Performance students, whether they're dance, theater, or music, they're doing their own performances. So concerts, dance performances that are choreographed by students, and theater productions. In my experience as a student at Bennington, the theater productions especially are really exciting because it can tend to be the consolidation of a bunch of people's senior work. So for example, I had a friend as a senior, she directed a play for her senior work, and that play was written by her friend for his senior work, and they involved some lighting design, set design people, and cast some actors who many of them involved this in their senior work. So, and all of this is without faculty involvement, except where the student wants guidance. So the student who's in charge of it, the student whose project it is. Bennington, again, is a very passionate, exciting, project-based place. I didn't study music, but I was part of a lot of senior shows, like 3 or 4, which to me was a lot. I've always played drums, and as a sophomore and junior, I was asked by a few friends to play drums in their senior performance. And other people will, record an album. Social science students will write a research paper, maybe do real world research, like anthropology students, or sociology students will do, research with people. But the sky's the limit with this senior work. It's really up to you to figure out how your plan essay sort of lends itself to a project. You can also think about your senior work as sort of a way of wrapping up everything that you've really focused on at Bennington in your 4 years and channeling all of that into one project. So that's the 4-year experience. It's pretty different than a lot of colleges. So to give you an idea of everything that I just talked about, I'll just quickly describe my plan as a student. So again, I started as a freshman in 2014, fall 2014. And I came in as a film and literature student, really wanted to make narrative cinema, really wanted to make movies, like write and direct movies. I took a lot of different classes my freshman year. I did exactly what we want you to do, which is explore, don't box yourself in. So I took a film class, a poetry class, an electronic music production class to try it, film photography, and a 1-act playwriting class. So that was my way of sort of assembling this creative plan for myself. So once I got to sophomore year, I had taken an anthropology class that I really liked. And as a film student, I realized that writing an ethnography as an anthropology student is really similar to making a documentary. So I went from being a film and literature student as a freshman to being a documentary student as a sophomore, writing my plan essay, which is our equivalent, again, of declaring a major. And that was my first plan was in being a documentary student, studying film, writing, and anthropology. As I progressed through sophomore year, I realized that I just really enjoyed talking about movies a lot more than making them. And underneath it all, I was really like a media criticism student. I was interested in combining short fiction, personal essay, memoir, and film and media and literary criticism to make this like unique, sometimes non-fictional, sometimes fictional writing style. And that's a progression that I couldn't have made at another college without having that introspection, that constant, every year, write a reflective essay to figure out, how did this year go? How was last year? How has your education progressed? Are you still really passionate about those things that you were passionate about when you came in? Have you discovered any new interests? So again, that progression from being a general film and literature student to being a documentary student was really hinged on taking this one anthropology class. So you can imagine why as a freshman, we want you to explore, because the last thing that anybody wants is for you to get to junior year, take that anthropology class and say like, man, I really should have been taking anthropology this whole time. It happens to a lot of students in a lot of colleges, happens to a lot of adults, years into their career, they realize, oh man, there's actually this other thing that I really love. And it really is similar to how I view the world. So we want you to explore as much as possible early on, so that the entire 4-year process is this paring down, this slow focusing of your studies. And my senior work, which is what my plan essay sort of progressed into, was a collection of nonfiction essays that again blended personal essay and memoir with media, literary, and film criticism, to sort of talk about not only these films and books and media outlets, but really to critique my own relationship with them. So that as a writer, as a writing student, Bennington was hugely useful in that, like, I found my voice because I was required to take all these different things, be in charge of my own education, like really ask myself, what do I want out of my 4-year experience? And to have that much control over your education, if you try certain things and really spread yourself out and then focus where you find passion, you can become a very specific student. So often Bennington students, or at least the Bennington program, people compare to like a grad program in how much attention you get to your studies, because you're in really small classes of about 12 people. We're on a first name basis with faculty. Faculty are all really exciting people who are active in their fields. It's really easy to reach out to faculty, whether that's staying after class a minute and talking to them, or meeting them for office hours, knocking on their door, their office, or emailing them. So working closely with faculty is a really huge part of Bennington. So that's sort of my experience as a student progressing through these different areas of study. If you have any questions about anything that I've said so far or anything that I haven't mentioned, I'm happy to explain. I mentioned earlier that Bennington has a 6-week fieldwork term. So every winter, 6 weeks, every student has to work on some sort of job. So it can be an internship, it can be an apprenticeship, you can be shadowing someone, you can be a consultant for a company, you can work with companies, nonprofits, government organizations, schools, hospitals, really any place, or an individual, like a working artist, for example, a fine arts painter. You can be a studio assistant for a painter. Really, as long as the content of your work over fieldwork term, as long as it relates back to your education, you can really do a lot of things. So the sort of calendar layout of fieldwork term is that it ends, our fall semester ends in early December. We have a couple weeks off in December, and then starting January 2nd or January 3rd, right at the start of the new year, you go to fieldwork term and start working 6 weeks until halfway through February, when everybody comes back to Bennington, and that starts in very late February. So Bennington's year actually ends in late May, and we graduate students in early June. So that's just something to think about when comparing colleges, is that our calendar is pushed forward. Your summer is a little bit shorter because you have this work experience every winter. So we require that you declare what your fieldwork term is going to be with our career development and fieldwork term office by November 15th is typically the date. So halfway through November, you're like a month and a half away from actually being at your fieldwork term. So that's a pretty, generous gap to make the school aware. So in those first 2.5 months of Bennington, and even before in the summer, you can look for things. So the first place that you can look is anywhere that's not connected to Bennington. If there's an organization that you know of through friends, family, social media, like things that you like, if you're a musician and there's a recording studio that you like, reach out to them. Just because, Apple Music marketing team isn't in our network doesn't mean that you shouldn't reach out to them. So the first place that you should think about is the world. Just think about what excites you and start reaching out to places. But we understand that the world is a big place, so sometimes it can be hard to just start with no prompt. So we have a few resources on campus to help you. The first is the actual career development and fieldwork term office. If you don't know what you want to do for fieldwork term, go to the fieldwork term office. Staff members just to help you figure out what your values are, where you want to be, if you have a preference, and really just present you with some options. So besides being in person, we have 2 major databases that are private to Bennington. They're specific to just Bennington students. We keep record of the past 20 some odd years of Bennington internships. So we keep lists of contact information. And you can break that down by area of study or location. So you can say, show me like film and video internships in San Francisco. And you can also see who the student was that worked with this organization. And if they're still a student, you can ask them how it went. But so that there's that list of thousands of internships, organizations, people. Then there's also a current jobs database where people who have heard of Bennington, again, individuals or organizations, companies, nonprofits, whatever, where they've heard about Bennington, they know what fieldwork term is, they want a Bennington student to work for them, they'll post a job opening, and they all understand that, it's only 6 weeks, so they're not looking for entry-level work. And some of them are internship programs that they very specifically had for years. And then some of them are, roles that they've created because they like Bennington or they need some extra help with these projects. So you'll get a job description with each opportunity you see. This site is called Handshake. So on Handshake, each entry has a description, describes compensation, whether it's paid or unpaid. If it is paid, is it wage? Is it hourly wage, or is it a stipend? If it's a stipend, is it just for your work done, or is it specifically for food and transportation? So it'll go through all of that. And then there's contact information and a portal to just submit your resume and cover letter right there. So that's a major resource. Every year there's over like 500 opportunities on this site. And again, Bennington is about 700 students, so that's pretty generous. And by the time that fieldwork term rolls around, not every internship has been taken, because a lot of people look outside or look to that past employer database. So that's a little bit about fieldwork term. I'll break down very briefly what my fieldwork terms were, and you can sort of imagine as I progressed from a film and literature student to documentary to media studies and straight up literature, you can maybe imagine why that made sense, these internships. So my first year, I worked at a live television broadcast station. It's basically like evening news. And I was editing live video, which is really just a matter of pressing a button. I didn't know that it was that simple, but fun. Learned that I was interested in other things about film and video. My second year, I worked at a film archive, digitizing, cleaning, and organizing films and videotapes of every format. So I finally had the chance to get my hands on every type of moving image medium, which was really great. I was living in San Francisco. That one was in San Francisco. My junior year, I was in Brooklyn, and I was working at a nonprofit, managing their social media accounts, doing really a lot of like copywriting every day, just throughout the day, posting things on every different site. And that was a great one. That was my first paid fieldwork term, and I very much wanted a paid one, so I was really excited about that one. I lived in an apartment with a couple of friends in Brooklyn. That was a really great fieldwork term. And then finally, my senior year was in Providence, Rhode Island. I was living with my then partner in an apartment that we actually got through the printmaking faculty at Bennington. Someone in his family had this apartment and cut us a really great deal for being there for 6 weeks. So we were in Providence, and I was splitting my time between a arts and culture magazine in the city and remotely 3 days a week working with a publishing company just in my apartment, reading novels, collections of short stories and essays, and marking them up, being basically a manuscript editor before these are being thought about as print worthy, which was really great as a writing student. Definitely boosts my confidence as a writer. So those were my 4 fieldwork terms: live TV, film archive, social media management at a nonprofit, and publishing both with books remotely and an arts and culture magazine in person. So that's my full experience as a Bennington student. I graduated in 2018. So a couple more things about Bennington that are important to know. I'm going to share my screen for a moment. And again, if you have questions, please feel free to type them in the Q&A chat. I'm more than happy to answer whatever questions you have. So here is the Bennington campus. So you'll see that we've got all these like white houses down here. These are 12 colonial houses that were the original houses built in 1929 for the first 350 Bennington women. Bennington was originally an all-girls school. And then over here, there's 3 boxy white houses in the trees. And then finally, 3 more slanty buildings over here in the trees. So a total of 18 houses at Bennington. The only thing that determines which house you're in is what your lifestyle and personality are and what you want out of a community. So every house is people of all different backgrounds, ages, genders, interests. The only thing that unites them is the community that they're looking for. So every house sort of falls on a bunch of different scales of like how loud they are or quiet. If people are playing live music and there's, people like to play drums, or if, people really like to just read and be completely silent 24/7. So all sorts of places on that spectrum. And then also like tightness of community. How often do people get together and hang out? Are people always hanging out in the common room and they're like a big family always together? Or are people more reserved and they're more on their own? So all of those questions and many more, we ask you in a questionnaire, which helps us place you with a roommate, and then that roommate pair in a house. So every year, the houses are slightly changing in that a senior class leaves and a new freshman class comes in. So the houses are very democratic, and they're always about really addressing everyone's needs and making sure everyone's heard. So we also have weekly meetings called coffee hour every Sunday. And it's a time to bond and do fun things, but also a chance to talk about anything that anybody's been struggling with in the space, or anything that they want to offer to the group. Really any time that you want to talk about what's been going on in the house, you have a weekly meeting to do it. We also have 2 house chairs per house. House chairs are typically upperclassmen students who you can think of as like our version of RAs. Whereas RAs are really about enforcing policy, Bennington house chairs are really support systems for all of the residents in the house. So again, there's about 35 students to 40 students in each house, and 2 of those students are trained and paid by the college to counsel students and just be there for them if they have disputes with each other. If they're basically trained in mediation. They're there if you're having any sort of emotional, social, or academic problem and you don't know who to go to. They're like basically ground zero for you, especially as a freshman. They're a great support system. And you also know that across campus there's 34 other great students that you can rely on, because there's 18 houses and 2 house chairs for each house. So a really great way of sort of supporting residents and students in every way. So if a student is struggling in classes, or they're struggling in their personal life and they don't know how to communicate with their teacher, or they don't know how to communicate with their advisor, or they don't know how to contact psychological services to see a therapist, their house chair is someone that sort of pats them on the back and says, okay, no, it's okay. You go to this office, get this form, fill it out, talk to this person, that sort of support system. So that's a little bit about the Bennington campus. Great. So a few more things about Bennington that are important. About admissions and financial aid. Our admissions process, we really read applications holistically. We try to piece together a story and really figure out who you are and what you want out of college based on all of the different pieces of information you provide us with in the application. So we're test optional. So if you're proud of your test scores, submit them. Cool. Like, well, we love that. If you didn't take the test, no worries. If you do have test scores and you're just not quite proud of them, do not worry. We do not knock you for not submitting test scores. You are not considered any differently for financial aid or for admissions. Okay, so that's an important thing. So besides being test optional, we really want the application to be an opportunity for you to represent yourself as you want to be seen. So really take advantage of the personal essay to make a case for your sort of critical thinking and creative thinking abilities. We have some supplemental questions on the Common App. You can choose 2 of 3 questions. The questions are, what attracts you to Bennington and why? What would you do for a fieldwork term, internship? And finally, recommend a book to us to read and why. So choose 2 of those 3. And we also recommend we require letters of recommendation, a transcript. We highly encourage interviewing us, having an interview with us. So if you're interested in that, we really recommend that you go on our website and check out our admissions office and find out who your admissions counselor is. Chances are it's me. So my email address, if you want to reach out to me, is my name, Wesley Hoff, WesleyHaaf, at bennington.edu. So please reach out to me if you're interested more in Bennington or if you want to set up an interview. We don't require interviews, but it's a really great chance for us to get to know a student beyond their application, sort of beyond their data. So if you interview, it would just be with me on Zoom, likely, pretty informally, just talking about what you're interested in, what you want to get out of college, how high school is going, those sorts of things. We also recommend that you submit a portfolio of work that you're proud of. And now this is not a portfolio to help you get into a specific area of study. Since we're a progressive liberal arts school, you just apply as a student, and then it's not until you get on campus that you then declare your areas of study. So we just ask for the portfolio because we want to get a glimpse into the type of work that you make, that you're proud of, and that you, maybe this represents the kind of work that you want to continue to do in college. And in fact, the more diverse your portfolio, sometimes that's exciting to us. At a lot of schools, it's not a great situation to have a ton of different interests because you sort of need to focus. But at Bennington, we really appreciate that you may have vast interests. So, submit a video of you doing a monologue, music you recorded, essays that you've written, different subjects, really just any work that you're proud of. And that is, that you can upload through the bottom of our Common App. There's a button that will take you to another site that's kind of like Google Drive or Dropbox that allows you to upload these items. You can even upload portfolio items after you've submitted your application. So if you write an essay, let's say for English, a week after you submit your application and you do really well on it and you're really proud of your work, go ahead and submit that. So yeah, we recommend portfolio, interview, and finally, financial aid. Bennington offers 2 forms of financial aid outside of federal grants and loans. We offer scholarships, merit scholarships, and need-based aid. So the way we award financial aid packages is first we look at a student's transcript. We look at the academic achievement that you had. How much did you push yourself in high school? What were your grades, of course? And we award you a merit scholarship based on your academics. Next, after we've sort of filled the bucket with that to start, then we look at federal grants that you might be eligible for, like a Pell Grant, which is for families within a certain economic threshold. And then we'll add those grants, and then we give you a chance to take out loans if you want. And then finally, we award you need-based aid to try to fill in that gap as much as possible. So every student, if they're really interested in Bennington and you're exciting, we are excited to try to make Bennington an affordable option for you, because this is a very unique school, and if you're really excited about it, then we love that too. So we want to make it work. So that's a bit about Bennington. Again, please, any questions you have, or if you'd just like to hear more about my experience as a student, I'm happy to answer any concrete or abstract questions. So I showed you the campus a moment ago. I'm just going to pull that back up just so you can take a look while I'm talking. So some other exciting things about the campus and in regards to housing is that because there's all these unique houses, these interesting communities within the larger community, it's a great way to sort of be dropped into a group of people that you might really get along with from day one. And through all the people you meet through classes, social life, performances, lectures, just all across campus, the more you'll meet people from other houses, you'll meet their housemates, and your social network, can like slowly expand. So there's a really great sense of possibility on campus. Even though we're a small school, we're 700 students, we're just about the size where I've always felt it's big enough that you recognize that it's small enough that you recognize most faces, but it's still you don't know every name. So there is a nice sense that you haven't met everyone. So if you're concerned about Bennington being too small, try to imagine yourself living with 40 other people in one of these houses, and sort of stepping out and looking at all these other houses full of people. So there's a really great community at Bennington. And because, again, everyone has their unique plan and education that they're doing, everyone is really passionate about making and sharing work. So there's a big culture on campus of, putting together a play really quickly, a staged reading of something, a poetry reading, an open mic, a concert, on the weekend in houses. So the actual houses can be really exciting places, not just for socializing, but also for sharing work. All of our academic buildings are really back here in the woods. We have a science and math building. We have an administrative and classroom and faculty office building here. It's called the Barn. And then we have a big visual and performing arts building over here. That's probably our biggest building, simply because we really want to have quality art studios for each student in their different areas of study. So we have a lot of theaters, a lot of different studios, printmaking, ceramics, painting, drawing, sculpture, metalworking, carpentry, film, photography. There's a ton of spaces in here. And then of course, costume shops, prop shops, all of the different theaters. We have like 4 different theaters for actors. And then finally, back here is our music building called Jennings. So that's actually the furthest point on campus. And right in the middle of this field is our newest building, which is called CAPA, the Center for the Advancement of Public Action. So pretty much any social science class that you're going to take is going to be in this white marble building over here. So that's a little bit about our campus and the general sort of culture around making and sharing work. And all of our buildings are open 24/7. So there's a great energy on campus of like being able to just make work whenever you want. If you can't sleep and you just need to go paint at 2 a.m, you can go do that. Also, as a visual arts student, you get more private studio spaces the more advanced you get in your work. So freshman year, you're painting in a big room where everybody has easels lined up. But then the next year, you're going to be in smaller rooms, sharing with like one other person. And then finally, you like get your own space completely as a junior and senior. So we really want to sort of support you academically with this small classroom size and faculty, working with them, thinking about internships in your work, thinking about how you're on-campus work translates to the workplace, what kind of workplace, what work would be fulfilling for you. And then in addition to that, you've got your advisors and your plan committee, this team of faculty that reflect the areas of study you wrote about in your plan essay. So we have all these different ways of supporting students, but really, what goes on at Bennington is that people make work. People, make artwork. They write essays. They do research. They record albums. They, put on performances. People are really trying to make work that they want to continue after school. So a lot of students will go on to grad school. About 60% of our students within a few years will go on to grad school. 80% of our students, 85% of our students within a year say that they are working and fulfilled by their work. So that's really our ultimate goal, is to give you a space to really flourish and make great work, and then finally take that work out to the world and find a meaningful place to have a career in.
Great, thank you so much. We have a couple final notes that I'm going to share. Thank you all for joining us. When you close this window, there will be a link to a very quick 4-question survey. We appreciate any feedback that you can provide. Also, again, this is just one of many sessions being hosted, so please be sure to sign up for additional sessions at IACAC.org. And in about a week, you'll find this session's recording as well as other session recordings at IACAC.org. Thank you so much and have a great evening.